Hi, my name is Kenneth and I'm the PSLE Science Specialist here at the Pique Lab Learning Center. Together with our education partner EduSnap, I'll be looking through EduSnap's database of questions and I'll be sharing with you some of the important pointers on what I think is the most important information to know about, especially about misconceptions and frequently asked questions.
Today, we're going to discuss on the topic of forces. So let us analyze this question that I obtained from the EduSnap platform. So a car was fitted with two types of tires, those with grooves and those without grooves. As the car was traveling at 100 km per hour, the car brakes were applied and the braking distances were noted. The experiment was conducted on both a wet road and a dry road, and the braking distances are recorded in the table below. So how are the braking distances for the wet and dry road different? The answer that was provided to the student that was asking this question is that the braking distances are always longer for wet road rather than the dry road because the wet road has less friction for the tires to grip on, so it does not slow down the car as much. And yes, definitely from one point of view, you look at it and you say, yes, this makes sense, right? But the problem is that understanding the concept in a simplistic form does not allow the student to replicate the answer to other questions in a complete manner. So I'm going to show you what the thought process should be instead of just talking about it having less friction, because this says very little about how we're going to answer a similar type of question when they face other questions in other exam papers. And so I want to bring your attention to three of the subjects here. The first is the tire, the second is the road, and the third is the puddle of water. And how they are arranged is that the puddle of water is on the road and the tire is on the puddle of water. So what's happening here is that the science concept that I want to focus on is that water acts as a lubricant, and this lubricant does something to friction. And every time we mention friction, as I mentioned in some of my previous videos before, is that every time we talk about friction, we must always mention friction between the surface of A and the surface of B, so that you can be very specific in your answer so that you can create a complete answer. So if we're going to put all this information together, how it should be is that water acts as a lubricant which reduces the friction between the surface of the tire and the surface of the road. Thus, the car will take a longer time to come to a stop, increasing the braking distance. And a lot of students, they come up to me and say, hey, Mr. Mark, the last part seems redundant because it is already in a question, isn't it? Yes, but if we look at it, the car will take a longer time to come to a stop, increasing the braking distance. This forms the conclusion of the question, and a lot of students missed out. So if you want to have a complete answer, this is important as well. Okay, so I hope you learned something today, especially the part where every time you mention friction, you need to mention between the surface of A and the surface of B, as well as going deeper into the understanding, so that if you understand in a way that lubricant is the key concept here rather than just the friction, then you'll be able to replicate this concept to many other questions that you do in the future.